Full meatloaf thing.
Yep, let's do it.
Yeah. Oh, are we filming?
I'm just wandering around and filming.
Okay.
Can I open the oven to look at?
Yeah, do you want to, or do you want to, yes, do whatever you'd like.
But I would have killed theirs first, because you don't have to do them how you do them.
That's true. I like to do them this way because they don't get as gummy.
That's the reason I almost never bake a squash. I mean, you know, like a butternut, because I'm gonna. They're paying to put the whole addition on. Oh, yeah. That was when they died. Oh. Wow.
All right, Slim. Let's get you some more
Nice and
coffee.
warm and germinated.
You must like onions.
I do. Well, there's red onions, white onions,
May I refill your coffee?
Well, one of the first things I didn't come here to live until after the 47 fire. My folks were burned out in Newfield, and that's when we moved here. Mom was teaching school here, and we moved here, but I knew Louise because I had babysat for her for several times, and I was going to the carnival ball at Sanford High School, and I didn't have any dress, and Louise says, never mind, I've got a dress you can borrow. So she had, I believe she'd been a maid of honor at Bessie's wedding, and so Louise told me I could wear that dress for the carnival ball. Well, it was a terribly cold winter night. I was going out with Richard Horn at the time. The car broke down. The car was cold. I sat on my feet to keep my feet warm, caught the hem of the gown in the strap on my shoe, ripped a big piece in the back of the gown. Louise had given me her pearls to wear. I broke her pearls, had lost them, they fell over, and I felt so terrible to have to go back and give Louise a ripped up dress and a bag of broken pearls. Acton was not as populated then. There weren't as many people here. We didn't have anywhere near as many houses. But we had a lot of activities going on. We had a lot of organizations. There was the Health Council and the Ladies Extension and School Club. There were a lot of organizations that both Louise and I belonged to. I think she and I probably both have served as president of all the organizations in town. And this was very interesting. I have loved Acton. When I first married, my husband was from Sanford, so he wanted me to move to Sanford with him, and I did. But I couldn't stand it because street lights were on all night. Cars were going by all night. I was in an upstairs apartment with people underneath me. I could hear everything that they were doing, and so I knew they could hear everything I was doing. So finally I said to Robert, I said, can we move back to Acton? And he said, we'll find a place. We bought our first house, was over on 109. Of course, that was back in the 50s. We paid $1,000 for it. And when we had it all paid for, now we had $1,000 equity to have a down payment on buying the house on Sandman Road. And I've never lived anywhere else since. I can't imagine living anywhere else. Go ahead, you talk, Louise.
Gee, I don't know. You think? Oh, when I first came to Acton, it was the only people that I met were the older people. They had the Farm Bureau, and so I was included in that, and everybody made you feel at home, most everybody. And there was something else I was going to say, I forgot.
I think the people of Acton have always been easy to get to know and good neighbors. They never intrude on you, but if you need anything, they're right there to help you.
Oh, yes. And being a nurse, I worked in Sanford part of the time, and even when I got stranded on the way in, why the road commissioners, Crosby, Mr. Crosby, took me in the truck and took me down part way, and then I was going to say something about you. Oh, I was very good friends with Lorraine Yetton, and we even had a baby in her house. Her granddaughter was born at home. And so you see, you did things in those days that we're not allowed to do now. And
when the Franny was going to have her baby, I was up to John Winchell's, Robert and I, we were having coffee, and the kids called me and said, Mama, Franny's going to have the baby, get home. And so I went home. Oh, don't worry, I said, there's plenty of time. And Franny was laying on the bathroom floor, and I got a look, and I said, oh my Lord, go get Louise, go get Louise. Whenever I had anything, my kids got sick, or my kids got cut. One time Janice put a button up her nose. It was always, go get Louise. Louise was the nurse in town, and Louise never took 1 penny of reward for anything she ever did. And she did, I think she was with me for all 4 of my babies when I had my babies in the hospital. And Louise she was a nurse, but she was also a wonderful person. I know even with my last baby, Louise was there with me to have Gail. So.
some of your grandchildren too.
Yeah. But whenever anything happened, because we didn't have a doctor in town, whenever anything happened to any of the kids or anyone, we'd say, go get Louise, or let's go to Louise's. And I don't know how many boo-boos she's bandaged over the years, but I know there's probably a lot.
And my house was always one of these that was open. The men were out hunting. All right, well, let's go down and have a cup of coffee. So they'd come in and have a cup of coffee. And they always knew the toilet was always free. And it was just an open place where nowadays you just don't, people don't walk in on visit like they used to. That's one reason we don't see our neighbors.
There was, back about walking in, back when Robert was road commissioner, one night he broke down. I was on the snowplow with him. He broke down upon Young's Ridge, and we had to walk home. And as we were approaching Louise's, I said, never mind, let's go into Louise's. We still had a ways to go to get home. And he says, oh, they'll be all in bed. And I said, they'll get up. So we just pounded on the door, and like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, Louise came to the door and let us in. And I was so glad to get in and get warm. It was a terrible cold night. Louise has been a wonderful addition to this town of Acton. She, probably everybody in town knew Louise, and she's been awfully good to a lot of people. She's a good woman.
Sounds like you're giving me credit for everything. And I think one of the things is that you always saw people, like when we had the fire in 47, everybody participated. I mean, they all went to fight the fire. They all went to make the sandwiches for the people that were out fighting. And you saw a group of people that was really friendly.
This is the way the people in Acton always were. My house.
They still are to a certain
Right.
extent.
My house on Salmon Road burned in 1967. I was babysitting for Judy in Sanford when I got the call that my house was on fire. And of course, by the time I got home, it was fully involved. But they were wetting it down with the firemen were there. And I know Louise was there that day because she was helping. But there were people I didn't even know were in my house, lugging stuff out, trying to get things out of the house. And the town had a supper for my family to raise money towards building a new house. And the house where Brendan and Mary live is one that we built. And Clinton Hahn worked on it, Victor Hahn worked on it, Bob Ram worked on it. A lot of the people in town just came and gave their time, and this is the type of people that Acton has had, people that give of themselves with no pay or anything to get back. They just give of themselves. I think this is one of the reasons that I have always loved this town.
I think this is one of the reasons that the time has changed so much. Maybe it's due to the number of people that have moved in. But anyway, you don't see them congregating together the way they used to.
Well, I think everybody is so busy today.
That's true.
The pace of life goes fast today.
That's right.
And everyone is always busy. When I mentioned about, when we were talking about when Franny's baby was born, Robert and I were up having coffee with John and Pat Winchell. And this is what we used to do. We used to go to people's houses and just have coffee and sit and visit. And we don't even have time for that today. Everybody is too busy, too busy.
That's true.
Mm-hmm. This is one of the reasons that I enjoy these senior citizen gatherings that we have, like we had here today, is that it gives us an opportunity to just sit and talk. And this is so needed, especially at my age. Well, it's kind of hard, Louise, being on at this age and having so many memories of people that
That's
have
right.
passed on.
I remember I took care of one woman, and she was dying, and we all do it, and she had the doctor that came from a distance. And so when she needed an injection, why she would have to go down and to the family, and it would probably cost them at least $10 just for the woman to travel down, Dr. Moulton. And so I used to have the Deborah at home, and then they would call me up, and I'd go out and give it. And I never charged them anything, but before I got through, the band put $1,000 in my hand. I never had that much money all at once in my life. It really meant something to you. You know who that was?
Right.
Muse.
Muse?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mrs. Muse, when her mother and father died.
Right. Well, we were speaking about that, it made me think when Gail was a baby, she was born in March, and I think she was only about 6 weeks old when she had pneumonia. And Dr. Richards told me, he said, I really don't want to put her in the hospital because there is so much bed stuff in the hospital. He said, if you can keep her at home. And so Louise came down and stayed with me for 2 days. She made a steam tent. She had the bassinet, and she had a steamer in there, the thing boiling water, and she had sheets draped all around, so this was an enclosed area, and the baby was in there because she had pneumonia and bronchitis, and Louise called the doctor every 4 hours and reported her condition. And she stayed with me right through this whole crisis time while the baby was so sick. And once again, never took a cent for it. She wouldn't let me pay her. I wanted to pay her for doing this, and she wouldn't take a cent for this.
I think one of the things that I remember as much as anything is these people driving up, especially the older men, in their pickup trucks. Will you take my blood pressure? And they had had orders from their doctor to have blood pressure taken. And so they would use that for an excuse. All right, I mean, we never charged anything for it. But you can't see people, they don't allow you to do things like that nowadays.
No.
I mean, and you got so many people that you wouldn't, that you don't even know that wouldn't do things like that. I think you miss a lot of your friendship.
Well, Louise was a very good nurse, and she's always been a very good friend. We're at a stage in life where there's only about a half a dozen of us
Yeah.
still at this age, still here.
Yeah.